Well, welcome back to another episode of Backyard Conversations. I have a special guest that I roped into doing this kind of last minute, and honestly, it's around 9 p.m. We just opened a couple of beers, and we're gonna have a good little backyard conversation on Zoom. So I have John Seegers with Signature Landscape Corp. You're in the Illinois area. Are you close to Chicago or kind of?
Yeah, so I'm like southwest of Chicago. So if you about 45 minutes southwest of Chicago, and then I don't know, you ever been up to Aqualand yet?
I have not, but I've been to
No.
Morris. Is that close to you?
Yeah, Morris is probably about 35
Okay.
minutes west of me, and
Okay.
Aqualand. I'm like 45 minutes from everybody. Cool. So
Yeah, Morris is where the one of the Belgard plants is. So I've been down there a few times. So it's a
okay.
pretty cool site down there. So, well, thank you for joining me. Tell everybody. I mean, you've been on a few podcasts yourself, but just for fun, let's tell everybody a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got into owning your own business, and what you're going after. What are some of your things you're trying to do with your business?
I can do that. So again, my name's John Seegers, Signature Landscape Corp. We are in Illinois, southwest suburbs of Chicago. We primarily do design build. We try to shoot for paver projects. Landscaping kind of comes with those, but pavers are my passion. Bricks don't die, and I really enjoy it. We started out like small, like everybody, and we're still small, but we're growing and getting more equipment and trying to be more efficient and running that race like everybody else.
Nice. And you are doing some really cool projects, which maybe kind of leads me to my first thought is it seems like, okay, so again, most of what everybody sees is, stories on Instagram and,
Right.
you give us a pretty good view of what's going on a daily basis. You do a really good job of that.
Thank you.
And kind of show us what you're doing. But would you say that you're on site quite a bit, or from my perspective, it looks like you have a pretty good crew and you're pretty much facilitating your business and helping them manage the project?
I think that's a true perspective. When I clock in, I make sure that I'm trying to produce, but most of my job is more overseeing and making sure that materials on site, materials leaving site. I find that's the best way to balance my life with estimates and family and that sort of stuff. Um, I get distracted too easily on site with phone calls and emails and that kind of stuff to actually get too much done in this time of season. Now, when we get into our heat, our June, July, August, and the phone starts slowing down a little bit, then I really get back out in the field more and I'm able to put in 4 to 8 hours a day of billable field work.
Okay. So like I struggle. I mean, we're 2.5 years in, and I find myself struggling with if my guys are there. I feel like I have to be there, and
Yeah.
I feel like it's not, and part of that is on me. Honestly, it's really just comes down to me. But I really love doing the work, but also, we're new. We have a couple of guys that are, one guy's been a year, so one thing that's difficult with us is we do like bigger projects that take forever. So it's not like I'm doing a repetitive patio every month or every 3 weeks. So
Everything's
it's like,
different.
so it's not like that memory part of it, or the repetition of doing that thing is like it. We have to kind of train every time we do it. So, and then
Yeah.
we just hired a new guy. So I want to be involved in that. But with the new hire, what I've been trying to do, and Travis has kind of turned into our main guy. I'm trying to push him out a little bit and say, okay, you go do this, you go finish that. And that's kind of what I want to try to do is like, we don't, we don't all need to be on a job finishing landscape and lighting and, tying up loose ends. And he's pretty strong there. So like, how do we now move on to the next thing? So,
Like a
how many,
lot of it is just pre-planning.
yes, right.
And just making sure, like, one of the things I saw myself doing today is the guys were working on a countertop with built-ins. And I thought to myself, why am I making a sketch at 7 a.m. of how the built-ins go and what's my center point, how many inches between this built-in and that built-in? And I'm like, this is all stuff that could have been done before this morning,
Right.
and would have made the day go a lot smoother. So I didn't have 2 site visits today
Right.
to make sure it was going correctly, because I wung a plan together. So I feel like the more prepared I am prior and trying to stay 2 to 3 days ahead of the crew, the more structured office time I get, where it isn't just an hour and a half, 2 hours before I get a call that, oh yeah, you forgot to tell us we need this, or um, that sort of thing. So I'm still exploring that path. I might just be, one struggle behind somebody or one struggle ahead of somebody. It's we're all learning.
Yeah.
All right.
So are you finding your guys are pretty comfortable running machines and equipment and all that stuff that you have available for them?
Yeah. Yeah. No, all my guys are well off with the equipment. One of my younger employees, I think he's 24. We've been pushing him more to get in the excavator, get some more seat time, and he's enjoying that. But a ditch witch is pretty easy to run, and the limited amount of stuff that we do with a full size machine on site, um, they're comfortable enough. Um, but yeah, everybody can run anything. Myself and my foreman both have CDLs, so we don't have to play the whole 26,000 pound game,
Yeah.
always looking over our shoulder and all that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
we just try to be as efficient as we can with the crew that we have. We were running 3 guys, got down to 2 last year. We lost one to the rail yard union. They were doing like a hiring event, and union benefits and all that are hard to
Yeah.
compete with. But so yeah, we're looking for another seat, somebody to train. Um, I'm okay. I don't need the experienced person. I don't need somebody, uh, with years behind that I have to, I don't want to say correct, but train our way. I'm okay with bringing up somebody young, and I'd almost prefer it. That way, we can keep that push to stay current with technology and the workforce.
Right. That's good. Yeah, I've been having conversations with myself. I do that sometimes. I don't know if you ever do that. Some business owners do that,
Oh yeah.
but and also with the guys and just like I love running equipment to the point where it gets hard to get out of it, you know. And then some of that is just like I got to just turn it loose, right? And then we get into these
Mm-hmm.
projects where I'm hanging, 1,000 pound, wall stone over, a cliff, and I'm like, hey,
Okay.
maybe I should be in the machine. Uh, and at that point, I think we kind of joked about this last week. Somebody's like, "Do your guys like to be on the ground since you have the equipment you have, and or do they want to be in the
Yeah.
machine?" I was like, "Well, this week they probably wanted to be on the ground because it was pretty sketchy there this week." But so I'm working on. It seems like we're either always in a hurry or we're always doing something very detailed with the
Mm-hmm.
machines. But they're both good at the skid steer and and they've had some time on the excavator, but it takes a lot of time I feel like on an excavator, especially when you get larger, even a small one, but just to get
Yeah, just
that
feel
feel
this
for it.
with
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
complexity in
Yes.
there
Yeah.
too.
And so I'm really, you know, I got to make myself say, okay, guys, get in there. And as painful as it may be, it may not be that they're bad at it. It's just, it's going to be slower. It's going to be that, they've had a little bit of time, but just, they have to get that because that turns into a bottleneck. If you have machines sitting there and I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to leave town. You guys can't run the excavator while I'm gone. That's not a good place to be. So, that's something I have to work on this year. And I think with adding people and giving more responsibility, I think that's something that I really have to turn loose of.
It's so
So,
tough, man.
yeah.
I forget who it was podcast that I was on, and we were having a similar conversation, and we kind of call it the let it to learn philosophy, because there's so many times I walk by an employee and they're doing something that I can see already is going to cause them trouble in about 30 minutes down the road when they get to this point or that point.
Yeah.
And I'm really quick to correct them. And it took so long to learn. And I was actually a mentor that had a similar approach with me, just to let me make a small mistake, because I can correct it so many times for you, but it isn't until you make the mistake that you learn from it.
Right.
And that took me so long to learn with employees, that, and frustration, but it can be something as simple as washing a truck. Like, hey, you have to be taught how to wash a truck, and you have to start from the top and go down.
Yeah.
And the first time somebody goes to wash a truck and they want to wash your wheels first, your running boards, you're like, yeah, it's not going to give you a good finish when you got all that running up on your dirty windows,
Yeah.
top down. But you don't learn that lesson until you go to drive the truck, and you're like, ooh,
Yeah.
that wasn't any good. And I think that just comes with time.
Yeah. And I actually, that came up in the last couple of days where, I have a way of thinking and a process in my head of how everything should go. And it's, 20 some years of doing something, or just the repetition I've been able to have,
Right.
and then it's like, this happened the other day, and I was like, if you, I try to take a minute, kind of let it happen. And then I kind of jump in. I'm like, okay, this looks like a learning experience, like here's how I think this could have been handled, so we're not doing this multiple times, or we're not doing it in a way that's not going to be effective later. Whatever you just did, we now have to kind of step back and do again, because there was a step that was missed. And that's kind of the, the training challenges of, the experience that different people have, and bringing new people into your company and that kind of stuff. So I find that
Do you ever find that you get surprised if you let them do it their own way? Like they come up with something, they're like, why have I been doing it my way for so
yeah,
long?
that happens too. Yeah. And that's been a conversation where it's, over the last year or so, it's like, I've said, hey, if I'm gone, because there was times where they didn't do anything because they just went on to something else and didn't do what I asked them to do, because they're like, well, Craig might not like the way we did this, which I didn't realize I was giving off that, like,
Vibe.
that vibe. Yeah. So I was like, you could either call me and ask me, or you could just try it, and then if we maybe the way you're doing it's better than the way I was going to do it, or the way that, as long as it gets done and it's accomplished and it's going to work within the project, I think that's the right way to do it. You don't have to rely on me to be there to tell you that move to make. So we're really trying to push that. And then I'm trying to send them off to do things where I'm not there. And that's been really rewarding for everybody, because they're getting things done and
That's
accomplished.
a tough one too.
Yeah. Getting them accomplished. And I'm kind of just saying, you guys know how to do this, go do it. So, so that's been kind of fun too. But, it's a struggle. It's like, I'm noticing the same thing with my kids. I have teenagers now, and it's just like, what are you doing? Like, do you understand what you're even doing? And they have to learn, like we all had to learn. It's like, not that my guys are like teenagers. I'm just finding that it just kind of relates every once in a while. You're just like, oh, interesting.
No, I hear you. That the struggle's real, and that's why I enjoy following people like you and people that are in similar shoes, the owner operators that are trying to balance this. I want to be in the machine. I want to control quality. I want to be on the site. And also, I want to be responsive to customers. I don't want people to wait 72 hours for a call back. I want emails to go. I want the same service that some of my vendors are giving me. And I don't feel like sometimes I give that to my clients, because I'm so focused on production and quality. It's like, hey, don't forget, to fill that sales funnel. Don't forget to get out there and make sure that you're giving your clients that time that's needed. So when I see people like you, start spinning your wheels to be like, well, I want to do best of both worlds. I'm going to put an office in my trailer. I'm like, all right. I can dig it. I get it. I know why you're there. I'm thinking, well, I wish I bought a trailer 8 feet longer.
Well, that's an interesting point, because we brought up, we put that space, and what happens is we leave our trailer on site as much as possible. Nice. Yeah. So the job it's funny because we just finished that, and then we finished the project where our trailer stayed on site. So now the trailer's going, the microwave is sliding around on the shelf. I gotta get back in there and do a little modification. But yeah, it's really nice because, what I notice is, like, because we don't have a bunch of jobs planned out. We just have, a few, but they're going to take us a while. So, like, I've noticed that there's times when I'm 20, 30 minutes from home and somebody sends an email and says, hey, can you sign this and scan it and send it back to me? And I'm like, maybe at 9 o'clock tonight, when I'm back,
Right.
So I bought a $60 printer scanner and I stuck it in my trailer and I got a hotspot and we bought a icy breeze cooler. Have you seen those? Or
Oh,
ice
yeah.
breezy or whatever they're called. So they're like, they have like they air condition off of the ice, So I'm
Yep.
going to try that not when it gets warmer and see if that actually works. But in a pinch, if you're in there for 30 minutes, that's usually what I need is 30 minutes to 45 minutes to do something, even if it's over lunch or something.
Yeah.
To just get in and take a phone call, return an email, and then I can get back to work without driving to my office, which would be 30 minutes away or whatever, 20 minutes away. So,
And one thing I have nice, most of my work is 15 minutes from my office. So sometimes I justify it because I know I can make 15 minutes of quiet phone calls between my
yes,
job site and my office.
yeah,
And I never know what I'm walking into since my office is out of my home when I get home.
right,
So I'm actually going to be able to make phone calls when I get back and just trying to utilize as much time as possible when I can. So if that's driving, great. Let's make some phone calls, and
yep.
get that
Sounds like
stuff
sounds
checked
like
off.
we're in the similar situation. Spend our time. I used to listen to music and podcasts all the time. Now I'm just on the phone. So
Yeah.
I
No, my phone's been crazy and just yeah, trying to keep up with everybody. And I love when people communicate fast with me, when my suppliers or my vendors or my subs. Like I thought about this one subcontractor I have today, and I'm just like, man, he is on top of it. And then I dug into a little bit on what he does for the back end, and he's got a um, a project manager slash secretary that he can go out and shag for lumber. He can go out and run an estimate. He can go out and do all these things. And I'm like, man, that back end team,
yeah,
boy, that would be so key because I always looked at it as like having somebody on the back end. Um, I assumed somewhere in the secretarial position that could take some of my load off, but I never looked at it in the way that he did. And he found somebody balanced enough that could swing a hammer, that could do the estimates, that doesn't mind, having one long office day or setting concrete posts the next day. Or just doing a ride along to be like, hey, you're riding along with me and we're figuring these things out as we go.
yeah,
Um, Almost like an apprenticeship program. And it kind of opened my mind to, I wonder if there's an avenue for people like you or I with a little bit of experience to open a position that would be 12 or 24 months or whatever it is to bring somebody under your wing per se in this trade. I don't know, maybe out of college. I mean, you
yeah.
have more grasp into this industry and educating and I feel like you're really tuned into the next generation coming up. I just feel like there's so many people that want to learn. How can we do that, and then I mean selfishly have it benefit us as well.
Right. And then the first thing I think of is this sounds like an overhead position. It's-
Yeah, that's another one too. You're like, yay, more overhead for
Yay.
a small company.
How do we build
That's
this
what
person to the job?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's though I
Well, that's
actually
what I was saying is if that
yeah.
overhead could have a few billable hours every once in a while. So if he could, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome because I mean, as much as possible, we're trying to have things delivered because if we go to a site or one of our distributors or something to pick something up, and it's like, then you run into three contractors while you're there, and you're catching up with the people at the counter, and then the next thing you know, it's an hour and a half, and so if we can, I try to get things delivered, or I have a CDL. We're working on one guy. He's got a permit, so we're trying to get him one. And then we have our full-time driver, which is nice, but
Yeah.
he's constantly going. He hardly ever works with us unless it's winter, but which is great. He's keeping the truck busy.
I was gonna say, yeah, keep that truck rolling.
Yes, and so right now it's like I have to schedule him a day off to where he can come help us. So, which is great. That's what I want. So, but yeah, it's like I was actually talking to the high school where our kids are getting ready to go, and they have apprenticeship, type programs, and then they also internships, and they have they kind of set people. They partner with companies in our towns. It's kind of a smaller town, to place kids that want to learn certain trades and things like that, or if they want to be an eye doctor or a doctor or a chiropractor or they're kind of modeling. I don't know if how many places this is going on, but they're kind of like, if you don't want to be a doctor, you don't need to get a diploma that's going to place you in a college to be a doctor. If you want to be whatever you want to be, there's like 4 levels of diplomas now that they're giving out. So people
Assuming
can,
you have a direction and know
right.
what you want to be.
Yeah. So people can kids can kind of focus instead of just being, putting, spending a lot of time in areas they don't necessarily need to be. So I'm working on hopefully getting to be a part of that list. I said, if you're partnering with companies in town, I'd love to be, one of those, so that, we could get a high school kid for a couple hours a day during the school year. And then maybe they, do an internship or workforce in the summer. And then who knows, maybe job placement, so that's something,
Yeah, I like that. I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna reach out to the high school by us, because I was in it. It was a landscaping co-op.
Yeah.
That I had to be in my what do they call that? My elective, or my whatever it was. And I had to get 16 hours per week or something like that. Usually they clocked in at like noon and went till 4 or 5 o'clock, a few days a week.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they could be paid, or I
Yeah.
don't know how that works. Some of them sounded like some of it was unpaid. Even it was just part of their schooling, and then if they worked for you in the summertime, then you could pay them or whatever. I don't know. I'm still researching this, but it's an interesting thought. So I need to keep working on that, because I think there's plenty of kids out there that would be interested in what we do, and we're trying to use technology, and we're trying to use equipment, and we're trying to, for 20 some years I beat myself up, and now I'm trying to take a little load off myself and my employees, and
Right.
and see if there's a different way to get these hard projects, completed. And some days are just hard. I mean, it is, you have to labor every once in a while. So it's still hard work. It's just, there's ways that we can make it a little bit easier and more efficient. And, I have a couple of our guys, we've had a couple of really hard weeks lately, but, looking back, one of them was like, that's probably the, 4th or 5th time I've been just dog tired at the end of the day in the time I've worked around. I was like, that's pretty dang good.
Yeah, it's not bad. Usually, it's not how it was when I came up in this
No.
industry. No.
No.
It was,
And-
you're a low man, wheelbarrow man, and now it's like anti-wheelbarrow everywhere. So.
Yeah. I started as a ditch man for an excavator when I was
Mhm.
like 16, 17. So I learned how to run a shovel really quick. So,
Yeah.
and we just went to 410. So we're trying this out for, we're going to give it a month or two. And so far, I think they like it. They like being off on Friday, getting a little more time. And I feel like there's a little bit more sense of urgency, and a little bit more, I guess that's kind of what I'm seeing the most of. And I feel like there's just like, okay, we have 4 days. We got to get all this stuff done, instead of we have 40 hours, So I think that's kind of the mentality that it gives you. So so far, I'm really liking the results, and I think the guys are liking that extra day off as well. So anyway.
Yes. I mean, I'm sure you could find some downsides of maybe guys finding other work or starting side jobs or doing like that. But if that's not a problem with your workforce, I know it's not a problem with mine, but I know that's one of the things that I grew up on. One of my mentors, his philosophy was keep employees busy enough where they go home tired and come to work the next day, that the more opportunities you give them to shop or look for other work. I mean, we're just trying to keep them busy. And that was this old school mentality of employee retention.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'd like to say that, keep them busy so they don't shop is probably not the best way. It's keep them happy, make sure they have the tools that they need, and make sure that they enjoy what they're doing. And it sounds like you're doing that if you're able to do just 410s and not be concerned with.
Well, they're also working
Saturday,
from
Sunday.
like 7 to 5:30, 6ish. So like by the time that's all done, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go work on Friday. if But I mean,
Yeah.
I never even thought of that as a concern. Actually, it was more just about like, how can we like, how can, I think the trap that I was falling into is when we were working 5 days, we were almost working 5 10s. You know what I mean? And then it's like
Hmm.
overtime, or, I have a couple guys on
Yeah.
salary, I'm killing them in the busy time. So, that's, it was more of just like, how do we balance out this, and I'm still working Fridays, and that gives me opportunities to kind of do like estimates, or kind of go hit a few things. Like if I don't want to go spend a whole day at a job, I can like go a couple hours and tidy up some things here, or go check on a pool that maybe's got a something going on with it, or
Yeah, your punch
just,
list stuff.
yeah,
The stuff that
punch
I
list,
end
yeah,
up doing on Saturdays is
yeah,
probably what you're getting done on Fridays, which is
right,
got to be a somewhat good feeling. I'm sure it overflows sometimes on Saturdays for you, but
yeah,
I like that model. I like having my Saturdays back because
yeah,
usually I kind of cut off my chasing on around noon on Saturdays and switch over to hobby, and whether that's maintaining my own personal equipment, or transitioning over to cool stuff at the house, or
right.
getting out of Dodge. Who knows?
And so the Friday becomes Saturday in a way, and
Yeah, I
that's
like
kind
that.
of how we're looking at it. Is like, okay, if we have to work, we're going to work Friday, not Saturday. So like if there's 2 days of rain, like we're trying to work out some, and
Mhm.
so far we haven't had too much of an issue with rain yet, but so there's all these gray areas. And I talked to a few people like Evan and Caleb Ballman. They're doing 410s, and a couple other guys around. I just tried to get some feedback, and the biggest thing was like, it really sucks when it rains one day and then it's 75 and sunny on Friday and nobody's working, you know, but
Yeah.
it is what it is, that's
Yeah.
so, but it's, but it also offers some flexibility because we have Byron's a firefighter. So he works, you know, his shift changes every, all the time.
Yeah.
So like next, he's not working this Friday or next. I don't know. It's hard to keep track, but anyway.
Right.
But sometimes he would work Friday, so him and I could go also do punch list items or keep working on a project or something like that if we feel like we're lagging. And he's very experienced, and then we had a new guy start, and that was kind of what kicked it off. Was like, okay, now we have two people full time on the crew. Let's start this now. Make it, everybody has a schedule. And then, he needed a day off, so now he's going to work a Friday. So it offers a little bit of flexibility on the schedule without Saturdays needed to catch up hours or that kind of stuff. So I'm finding
All
I was
right.
nervous about it all along. I've been thinking about this for like a
Wow.
year, and it's the more I'm thinking about it, it's just like, wow, I should have done this a long time ago.
I'm
So
excited to follow up on this maybe in October,
yeah,
November when we see each other to
yeah,
figure out how this went for you, because it's a road that I would consider as well. I'm loving creating more free time for me,
yeah,
um, and not letting this business overtake my life.
right,
So I only get so many days. Gotta
yep.
make them count.
So I had a question. I see you doing a lot of your own maintenance. So
Hmm.
I think for me, I am not like, I've worked on cars and I've worked on equipment, and I've worked on I've done maintenance on my own stuff. Over the years I've done all these things. If something breaks down, we try to fix it. And I think the mentality I've gotten into now is most of our stuff is newer or under warranty. Um,
Hmm.
so I've kind of said, okay, if it's under warranty, I want the dealer to service it until the warranty's up, just for records for my, and, I feel like, and then,
Why not, right?
yeah. And then part of that is like, we have like our Ditch Witch dealer and our Sani dealer and even our Kubota dealer, they all have mobile service. So we can have them out to the site. They'll change the oil, check over everything, or they'll come fix a leak. And we're not keeping like tools, I am not efficient at it. So I look at it as something like, why am I going to take away from my production to go do maintenance or do, to work Saturday or to work, whatever to get everything maintained. But I'm also more involved on the crew side. But even if I wasn't, I don't think that's what I would jump to, right? So I guess my question for you is, obviously you must enjoy this. This is probably something you like doing. And then do you feel like it takes away from production, or do you feel like it saves you money, or just maybe keeps you in tune with your machines a little bit more?
It's a little bit of everything. Like in the season, I'm not afraid to pay somebody to do it. But what I find in my market, maybe you have more people with quicker schedules, is the Ditch Witch dealer is an hour and a half away from me. And chances are, if I bring it to them, they're not going to be able to look on it this week.
Right.
It's going to be 7, 8 days down the road. So if it's something like a broken stud or a track replacement or something that I can do in the time that it would take me to drop off and pick up the equipment, so 3 hours, I'm going to do it. I know
Yeah.
how to do it. I have the tools to do it.
Right.
It's not a big deal to me. It isn't something, dooming that I look at with like, oh, such despair that I have to do this. It's like, it's just another task for me. It's not something I fear. It's something I know I can accomplish in a set amount of time. And anything I run into, I'll be able to fix.
Right.
Or know somebody who I can call and get the answers that I need. So I think a lot of people hesitate to do repairs because they're fearful of what kind of hornet's nest they're going to get into.
Yeah.
Where I've already had my hands in that nest many times. Like I know how it feels to get stung, and I know how to fix what I get into 9 times out of the 10.
Yeah.
I love doing it in the off season because I'm not producing, because we don't do steady snow work. And this is a great time for me to get in my shop and make my overhead pay for itself. I mean, I pay a decent amount of money monthly to have the shop that you guys see me working in the wintertime. Right. Yeah. So, and the overhead to keep those lights on and keep the shop heated, all that stuff adds up. So in my head, I need to justify that with some operational savings by doing some of the wrenching to make sure that the equipment is maintained and serviced. Now, there's things that don't make sense for me to do. I don't have a tire balancer or tire breaker, so I'm going to run that down to the shop down the road. Or I don't have the most up-to-date equipment for GM for a 2022, Sierra. I'm going to have to run that down the road to have that flashed or figure out what code it is.
Right.
But the small things, I mean, you just got to kind of weigh. My time's too valuable to plug a tire. I'm going to drop that off somewhere.
Right.
Might take it off the truck, but I'm going to drop it off somewhere and they're going to get it done in a few hours. But then my time's, very valuable when it comes to, longer service lines at New Holland or Ditch Witch or Kubota or Bobcat, where I know I'm going to be 2 weeks before I even get my problem looked at.
Do you have mobile guys in your area? Maybe not, since they're so far away.
We do have mobile techs, but I mean, shop rates by me just to bring it somewhere is $150 an hour plus. So you get a mobile tech on the road and you're probably $250 plus. Yeah. And then normally when they get out there, they find that they need something or they don't have the right part or whatever it is, and they end up pretty much like getting it mobile enough to get it on a trailer to bring it to the dealer. So now you're getting double pinched by the mobile tech and the shop. So I've seen like what you and Sutton have for like mobile techs it's just not as, maybe I'm not known to it, but it's not as prevalent in my area.
I mean, if they come out to change the oil on a machine, it's like
that's
$250
to a mobile tech changing oil.
Yes, which is great because
mobile techs don't change oil.
Yeah, well, it's nice for me because they it's $250, $300. Okay, it's probably what they'll bill me to change the oil, filters, and all that. And so for me to haul a machine to, they're 35 minutes from me. It's by the time I chain it, load it, get a trailer, have the right truck to have it, maybe I'm taking the International or the Peterbilt, it's like maybe I have my guy taking it down there. So when we do like the big services, like 500 or 1,000 or that, we'll take it in and we'll just kind of time it with like, okay, we don't need it on the job. We'll take it in. They have it for a few days. Like one of them just happened to fall when we went to H&A. So I was like, oh yeah, take it in. we won't be here working anyway. So, and then, so sometimes we do that. Sometimes it's just a quick, something broke. I just don't keep tools. I mean, we have tools for what we do. You know, I have a few wrenches that we can fix a few things, but if it's something, you know, I had a hose. I mean, this is a perfect example. I had a hose on my grapple burst out and start leaking the other day. I immediately called the mobile hose repair guy, and we kept working, and they came and fixed the hose and left, and we were back to work. So I could have looked for tools, found every crescent wrench I own, and then, you know, and it was all tight spots, and they had the tools to get into those areas, you know, and it was just like, well, it's done, you know. So now I'm like, well, I'm going to have a couple extra hoses made, and now we can change it. And then, you know, that's kind of, and that's what I see you do is you keep some stuff in stock, which helps. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I would go to so we don't have a mobile hose maker, but we do have a hose maker probably within 30 minutes of all of our jobs. So I would go there and I would do what you just said, but like, yeah, how many? It's $150 for one. Give me two. And then the second I go, before I leave, give me a tag. I'm going to mark what this is, because I know the second I throw it at the shop on a hook, I'm going to be like, that hose is for something important. I don't know what it was, but I have it someday and I might use it. So, and labeling and staying organized at the shop. So whether that's, you know, the Western hoses on the plows, or if that's the hydraulic hoses on the ditch witch, having a plan B. I'm a big plan B guy, having an extra piece of equipment for everything, and just keep on rolling to keep the production guys moving, like you're saying.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really fun to watch what you're doing and how quick you can turn something around like that, and how you're like, oh, this went bad, I have it on my shelf. You know, that's just being prepared, and probably because you faced that same situation before or a similar situation, and you're like, well, I better have an extra, or I better. So that's really cool. And so we have a shop that it's not insulated. It's just a built shell. You know, it's a nice location. We can dump there. It's got a shared dumpster. It's like good size. We can pull everything we own into it. You know, not at the same time, but you know, we can fit everything. So we'll bring stuff in, you know, clean it. We'll do certain types of maintenance. A lot of times we'll try to do our own trailer lights and things like that, because that's stuff I can figure out pretty easily. And that's something that happens all the time. You know, it's like, oh, I got to fix a plug again. It's corroded, whatever. So I've gotten decent at that, but, so anyway, it would be nice to one day have a shop that we can heat and do some things like that in. Have you know, at what point would you say, hey, maybe, like, you're not a full-time mechanic, you're not doing this all the time. Like, at what point does a company say, man, we just need to hire somebody to maintain all our stuff?
Yeah, I don't know.
More overhead.
I don't think it'll ever be in my history, because more overhead, like you said. Now I have a 40, 60 grand mechanic doing stuff, and then I have to outfit him with all the tools. So there's another 40, 60 grand or whatever, 15 grand a year, and update this, update that. I guess I enjoy it. Like I have toys too, so those need to get worked on. Those break. It's just a hobby of mine. I mean, I don't think there'll ever be a time that I don't have a shop. That's one of my aspirations this year. Is I'm working real hard to put up a new building.
Nice.
A lot of things going, but in the Illinois market, the commercial rental space that has outside storage. A lot of the towns by us want to kind of like neaten up, so they're doing a lot of industrial zoning with no outside storage, which is tough for your concrete, your landscapers, your guys starting out. So in turn, those properties, few and far between. You pay a pretty dang penny for a shop like mine. I mean, my lease next year will go to $3,500 a month before utilities.
Oh wow!
So it's a dent. So that's when I was saying, while you're paying the repairman and the mobile service man and all that kind of stuff, I have to justify my. I don't know. Maybe you think it's normal rent, or I don't know what you.
No, I'm paying half that. So yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. and we can park outside. So yeah.
exactly. So
Wow.
it's a different avenue. I have to justify my shop space by saving money on small repairs, and in my book, or I need to. The other day when we get rained out by noon, if I can give my guys 6 hours in the shop, it's going to equate to probably 3 hours at a cost wise, 3 hours over at $175 an hour shop an hour.
Yeah.
And they're
Sure.
not going to look at anything for 2 hours. So
Right.
um, that's my goal. I'm close. I should see some progress this year, but um, we should by spring we should have a 10,000 square foot facility on 10 acres,
Yeah.
and that's been my dream for a long time.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
working toward that, and
Yeah.
that's
Look forward to seeing that happen.
I can't wait. I can't
Yeah.
wait to start sharing more details about that. But for the time being, I've just been kind of keeping it somewhat quiet on the gram just until all my I's are dots and T's are crossed and permits are filed, and
Yeah.
not to amp something up and have it fall on my face.
Right.
But
Exactly.
no, that's why I've been on the debt free track and trying to pay off equipment, and I'm close on that too. So that just that I can put all my eggs in the basket of my shop, and that's just an aspiration of mine. Whether it's smart, whether it's dumb, I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's something that I've always wanted and something I've always goaled toward, is having a property of my own. So
Yes, and that's definitely one of mine too. And one thing I noticed, I'm looking, eventually, and working towards it. I bought a dump truck instead. So that, but one of the things that I'm looking to do is have a commercial property, hopefully in the area that we live, and be able to either use all of it or lease part of it or something. Because that's something what I realized when I stopped my business in 2015 that I had before was that I had a shop at my house, and then I sold all my equipment and stopped my business, and then I'm like, okay, I guess I'm done. I didn't really have anything to like if I would have had a commercial building or something, I could have maybe sold it or leased it or something that would continue on, and at that time I just had a nice house on 3 acres with a pretty cool shop, you know,
and
and
that's
there
where
was,
I'm at.
yeah, there was no there was no other revenue stream that came from, that situation. So that was kind of an eye opener for me, because in the business model that we're in, I mean, you could probably scale somehow to sell a business like this, but it's mostly the equipment and the assets you have and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah, I
not
would
like you
agree
have
with that.
recurring contracts, so it makes it more challenging. So yeah, that's just something in the back of my head is like if I retire or whatever, I don't want to just be like, well, let's sell all the equipment and then see what, then I guess I'll go get a job because I don't have any, you know.
And that's my game plan too.
Yeah.
So the wife and I actually will be the owners and um, purchasers of the land and the building, and then we'll lease it back to my
Yep.
landscaping company,
Exactly.
and that way we can control that situation, so that if I go and work for Scheller Outdoor Living someday
Hmm.
and just close it up, and I'm going down to this by these Kansas City boys, um, I'll have that revenue stream from a 10,000 square foot building
Yeah.
generating XYZ per month.
Yeah.
Um, and we've transitioned our portfolio from rental homes to putting our eggs in this basket, because I feel like it's got not only does it have the highest return, but it also has my goals of having this property, to do my cows on this piece of property, to have my trees on this piece of property, to move
Right.
that all under one umbrella while keeping my family secure in their coveted subdivision life that they like, with all their
Right.
friends and neighbors and all that kind of stuff, and not moving them out to the boonies. And
Right.
so kind of balancing both worlds to keep my family happy in the subdivision life, and then keep John happy in his country life.
Yep. There you go. That sounds awesome.
I can't.
Another thing I was going to ask you about was your rental stuff. So you have some machines that you send out into the snow or different things. You have some
Mhm.
skid steers and things like that. Is that something that's just another hobby for you, or is that just like does that give you reason to have the machines, or kind of because it's I don't know, it's just an interesting you don't see a lot of people
Yeah.
having machines, renting them out, and how does that work, I guess, a little bit, if you don't mind sharing some of that.
No, I don't mind. So I come from a family that was always, on Sunday afternoon we'd meet up and we look at the truck paper or before Craigslist and that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, and we would look for deals to, essentially Grandpa would say buy low, sell high.
Yep.
To find a deal, if he puts a little bit of wrench time or a little bit of paint time into it, and then resell it. So I've done that my whole life. What happened is I would come across, in this case, I had a year where I came across a lot of skid steers, and suddenly I'm looking at my buy sell category of my hobbying, like you were saying,
Yeah.
is I'm sitting on 6 skid steers, and then the bottom falls out, and everybody wants a skid steer.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, I could sell it, but from what I'm hearing, all my snow friends are telling me that they can't find machines. So I walked into a dealer one day and I said, "What do you guys rent these machines for?" And like an interested party, where's your contract, this and that. So I bring it home and I look at it and I'm like, all right, they're getting this amount of money for 4 months, and here's their contract. Well, I know people, so let's connect the dots. So I made a contract based off the biggest rental person in my market, matched their rate because they didn't have any machines, so I had no competition. And I put the feelers out there, said, "Hey, here it is." And my justification at the time was like, "Hey, I'll try this out. I'm going to get paid over for 4 months for the next winter season. I have everything in place. I've learned all the litigation and the insurance and how to insure it for replacement value and what happens if it's stolen and all these little ins and outs of the business by asking questions. And at the end of the day, in April, the machine's going to be worth more.
Yeah.
So why not sell it then? Why do I want to sell a machine in January?
Right.
My market's small."
Yeah.
So I tried it and I liked it. I mean, it worked out really well. We started the first year with 2 or 3 machines. Second year got up to 6 machines, and now we're back down because of my goals for
Yeah.
different avenues. I decided to bring my business debt down to 0, and I sold 2 machines over the past 6 months just to kill all the payments pretty much, and
Nice.
go into this building process. I call debt free. Everything I have is 0% and less than 18 months left. So in my mind, I'm debt free.
Yeah.
I'm not paying 0% stuff off. That's just not in my interest.
Yeah.
But technically, I guess I'm not.
Yeah. Well, that's I'm with you there. I just paid off a loan, a business loan, and
Feels so good, doesn't
it? It did. And because God knows I have plenty of them, but it does feel good, and it just like, then I was like, oh, I can go towards this one, and it was just something where I have stuff on machines. This one was kind of like, I wasn't planning to start my business, so I went out and got a loan to kind of buy some things, I guess, to make just a personal loan or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that was 2.5 years ago, and I just was like, we just paid it off, and it was like, yes, let's move on to the next thing. And it does feel good.
If you're only I'm 11 years in business, so I've had a longer time to achieve this goal than if you've only done it for 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So I think, and I don't think that was even on my mind at 3 or 4 years. So it was just try to keep up and make the payments that I had. Honestly, it was
that's what I'm
growing so fast.
That's what we're doing.
I mean, it was just like, whatever. Everything I'm making payments on is earning me money, and nothing's sitting in the barn.
Yep.
So it is what it is. But now it's just trying to mitigate risk, and I'm trying to do something I've never done before with this project, and
that's awesome.
It scares me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, it scares me. It's a ton of time and a ton of money to do what I want to do. So I'm just trying to ease other factors in my life so that I can do it.
Yeah. Well, man, I respect the heck out of you, and I love watching you, and I think you got some great goals, and your projects are awesome. And one of the things that we're doing, a repair job this week, and I know that's something that that's something that you take very seriously, and making sure
Mm-hmm.
that your warranty stuff is, and warranty stuff can sometimes lead to something, and sometimes it's just as warranty work, and
Right.
that's what we're seeing. We've been in this long enough where, we doing the pool game is it's very rewarding. But when there's things that go wrong, it can be very time consuming to fix. And so
Yeah.
we had a month or so ago, we were fixing a channel drain that was popping up. We just didn't get it in quite right, and we wanted to get it fixed before they hit the pool this year. So that was on our. It's too cold to do it in the winter, but like we had to fit it in, right in the right time. And then the one of our second pool we did, the guy opened his pool, took his cover off, and coping's just falling off everywhere, and it's like, so I mean, it
I
was,
give you pool guys credit, man.
yeah,
I
it was
and
one of those things
you
where
a
he's,
ton of credit for
yeah,
that one that you showed.
oh
Man,
yeah,
that was huge too. But I have contractors in my area, and I'm hearing these horror stories of fiberglass pools breaking and snapping and this and that. I'm like, oh man,
yeah,
when something goes wrong for you guys, it goes wrong.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it
Pulling that
isn't.
pool out was not fun, but it had to be done, and
Yeah.
it's just one of, yeah, what I'm trying to do is build a reputation that's not, oh well, he left us high, because there's so many stories, and there's one in particular, and I mean there's a pool that's been sitting completely undone, I think for 2 years, and they're in a lawsuit. The people built a brand new house. It's like,
And I could throw a stone from my house
yeah,
and hit three of those.
yeah, and that's not, I
So many
mean,
startup pool companies who botch stuff.
yeah, and it was just it was installed wrong, and they're trying to blame other people and all this. It's terrible. And what I want to do is have your reputation, be like, yeah, we call Craig and he comes, and we're not as fast as we could be. I try to manage it with what we're doing, but
Mhm.
like this week you know he opened his pool, and probably 10 pieces of coping were falling off, and that's not safe. And they're trying to,
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
yeah. So I just said, pull it all up. Obviously what we used is not working, and we re-prepped everything, ground all the stuff off, the mortar and everything, and we're going with a different direction. So we're doing what's been working for us. That was kind of one of our learning experiences, so, but it's a challenge, because that's not stuff that you have, you can try to budget in some warranty items and things like that, but like in the spring when you're trying to really get going, it's tough to send two guys for 3 days to fix pool coping that you've already been paid for. But
Been approached many times to put pools in, and during the whole rush of everybody wanting one, and
yeah,
I've thought about it, and it's like, man, I'm running numbers, it's lucrative, it's this and that. It's like,
yeah,
you know what? I don't know. I just feel like when things go wrong, and I give you props because you're figuring it out, but I don't know. It,
yeah,
it wasn't for me.
yeah. And I'm
But
I'm
in the
I'm like,
same
I kind
respect,
of want to go
I got
sell. I
another
just
pool
want to go sell
contract.
a patio.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just getting the grasp on my larger projects, hitting my hours right
Yeah,
after this many years of doing it. And um like the one we're on now, I'm hitting them every work area that we complete. I'm real close, within a few
yeah,
percentage on my hours. I'm like, finally, I'm getting good
yeah,
at this. Like,
yes.
let's
That
get this going. And that's what makes me nervous about. I mean, anything new makes you nervous, but it's just that realization that anything new that I try, like for example, this Ucara project that we're on right now, I don't have a ton of experience with Ucara, so you go into it knowing that this could very well be a learning experience,
Yep.
and how you gotta not mitigate, but you gotta watch how many learning experiences you take on in a year, because you're like, so at some point you do have to pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And you're a synced up user, right? So
Yeah,
it's really nice having that. It's so important for us, and our guys are really getting in on it, and they're getting on me, because like I'm the one that always forgets to clock in. So like I've been really
yeah,
trying, and we just finished a project that was crazy, and we did a bunch of fill. And I missed the gravel. I know that, but that was just, we're doing things now to try to help us, figure those things out better on these projects. But I mean, we were like right on the hours. I'm not sure how I pulled that off, but that's a 3-month project and being just under what you bid,
Yeah.
and with a little bit of wiggle room to go back and do a couple things. I think that made me feel really good. And because I think, materials are one thing, and like you hate to miss on materials and miss a lot, of course, but you're always going to have something. And that's where that program is awesome, because you can be like, okay, now I can go back and I can be like, well, I bid 300 tons on a similar project and it was 400 tons. So let's do some math here and see if this is something we need to, and it took us this many hours to do this pool and this many hours to do the patio. And you're building all this data. And that's what really, it's not just the estimating and, keeping track of everything, but doing it properly and keeping track of it gives you data for the next, projects in the next year. And that's what's really been awesome for us, is being able to look back.
I love the internal note taking as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you utilize that, but I'm constantly throwing stuff in there, because I'm getting in the habit of checking on the desktop the guys' hours at the end of the day to make sure that they clocked into the work areas correctly.
Yeah.
Which now, as you know, is awesome that we can change those at the end of the day.
I didn't know that, but thank you for telling me. I haven't been updated. I need to get on one of the webinars.
Yeah, they just released it, I think, yesterday.
Because that was a big pain point. Yeah, that's a big pain point sometimes.
They clock into a wrong work area, you can edit it instead of having to delete and re-input it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the interface has changed a lot. So I give Fred and Weston over there at Synced Up major props, because they have put out so much good in that software, and they're just so driven to make it even better than it is. And it's like the way that they just launched that platform to take in feedback from users and other users vote on it and make sure that we're focusing on our efforts on what you guys think is most important in these programs. I'm like, man, what a company that's so well connected with its user base.
Right.
I got nothing but good things to say about those guys.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and like it's really great. And we're on a new job now, and I'm already seeing areas I missed. And I think one challenge for me is I bid this stuff last year, and I'm really just getting the feel. Like, I've had Synced Up for a year and a half now, but some of these projects we're doing now were bid like right at the beginning of when I got Synced Up. So like, it's challenging, because I can't go back and tell people this, sorry, this has changed or whatever. It's just, that's part of learning. But now we have the data. We're collecting the data, and now we have it to move forward into new projects and be able to be very, precise and give the right hours. And it's really cool to see the guys are like, hey, did you clock in? Or, hey, how are we doing that on the hours? Or, because, and then you can load pictures and the plans, and, there's all kinds of different things you can do with the program that just makes it a lot easier on the crew. So
I love it. What sold me on that software is the sales process, not having that back end overhead for secretary, and the ability to send an estimate, and before I know it, it's been e-signed, it's the invoice deposit has been sent, and that the ACH payment has been received. I didn't have to meet customers, pick up checks, go to a bank, fill out a deposit slip, re-input it into QuickBooks. I'm just like, for my monthly subscription and a $10 ACH fee, my life has become so much easier.
Oh yeah. Yep. I did a change order while I was filling up with gas one day. Well, fuel. Yeah. And sent it off.
Fuel.
And fuel. Yeah.
That's my pet peeve, when people fill up diesel trucks with gas.
Fuel. Yes. Well, we've been at this a while. This has been fun. It's been really fun talking shop with you and catching up. And you're going to be at H&A?
Of course.
All right. Well, then the camper. Bring the campers.
Yeah, I might have a surprise for you there too.
Ooh. All right. Well, hey John, I appreciate it, and I could talk forever, but it's getting late, and we both have work in the morning. So, thank you so much for being on. I've been thinking about having you on for a while, and I appreciate you jumping on with us. And I
Hey,
think
very well.
um, I love these conversations because I think it just gives like, just different ideas. It gives people a perspective on how companies are doing things, and just I mean, I learn a ton. That's selfishly, I started this podcast just because I love talking to other people in the industry, and
Right.
it's become really fun. So thank you so much. Best of luck to you and your goals and your endeavors, and I'll look forward to keep watching what you're doing this year and the projects you have coming, and the different things you get accomplished. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Craig.
Yep, we'll see you.